This is a very serious event, I see. So, Melissa, my wife, they've told me I have to keep this to 18 minutes. I have to make a long story short. What do you think? Can I do it?
Yeah.
So, hello, everybody. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, so many people. So, my real name is Robert Haldane Muller-Moore IV. But everybody calls me Bo, the Eat More Kale guy. Bo, because I couldn't spell anything longer than B-O in kindergarten. And the Eat More Kale guy because I'm the owner of a micro business. I print and sell screen printed shirts that simply say Eat More Kale. Well, I have recently caught the attention of a fast food chain from the Deep South worth billions of dollars called Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is blocking my attempts to trademark my design and pursuing a cease and desist case against my business. They say that my design, Eat More Kale, is too confusingly similar to their design and slogan, Eat More Chicken, spelled incorrectly by a group of semi-literate cattle trying to get some heat off their back and get you to eat more chicken. They spell it EAT MORE KALE. They say that I'm confusing their customers. They say that I'm affecting their profits and that I'm diluting their multi-million-dollar annual ad campaign. Well, to that I say I am not. Because of this egregious action, I'm going to call a spade a spade. Chick-fil-A are corporate bullies, and I'm here to shine some light on their shenanigans. So let me give you a little history as fast as I can, please. 16 minutes to tell an hour-long story. Here I go. I moved to Vermont back in 1998 on a whim, and was pleasantly surprised to find quite a home and quite a community here. The concentration of creativity in Vermont, as you all know, is amazing. I couldn't throw a stone without hitting a potter or a poet, a massage therapist or a musician. Lots of loggers and lots of lawyers. Let's just say I was impressed by the creative nature and the do-it-yourself nature of this state. Well, I soon wound up dating a gal that I eventually wound up marrying named Melissa. Well, Melissa's an extremely creative person and grew up in her parents' art studio. She had known art her entire life. Well, I have to admit, I was envious of that. I had not known art all my life. I had never done any art to speak of. Well, upon expressing my envy towards arts, if you will, she says, well, if you want to make art, Bo, you need some art supplies. Duh. So she, for our first Valentine's Day together, bought me something called the Speedball Home T-shirt printing kit. A $30 kit that included a squeegee, a stencil, a tub of black ink, and an instructional booklet on how to print T-shirts. Well, I wound up reading the very first paragraph, and the first paragraph essentially said, if you want to keep this real simple, cut stencils, use water-based black ink, hand set your design with a handheld iron, and voila, you've got your own T-shirts. So I have to admit, she gave me this gift, and for a moment I thought, well, I need to put my money where my mouth is. I feel a little pressure here. But the word cheese popped into my head. I thought, all right, I'm going to make a shirt that says cheese. So I put my finger down on the stencil, and I traced it, and I traced the H, the E, and the S, and I cut it out with an X-Acto knife. I went into my guest bedroom, found an old green T-shirt, printed the word cheese across my shirt, and wore it to the high school that I was working at the very next day. Well, y'all, I'm not making this up. By lunchtime, the very next day, I had students and faculty alike telling me, Bo, that shirt's really cool. Where can I get one? Well, I said, I'll make you one. Give me $15. I'll make you as many as you want. So literally within 24 hours of printing my first T-shirt, I was taking orders for T-shirts. So I thought, well, all right, I must be onto something. This is kind of fun. So for the next year, I kind of puttered around making very Vermont-themed type T-shirts. Animal designs, political designs, musical designs, and food designs. A year into it, a farmer approaches me, a guy named Paul Betts, and Paul says, "Bo, I understand your handprint t-shirts. I've had a bumper crop of kale this year, and I want you to make me 3 t-shirts that say Eat More Kale." And I said, "Paul, Eat More Kale? Are you serious?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what do you want them to look like?" He says, "I don't care. You're the t-shirt artist here. I'm the farmer." So I went home, and once again, I traced my fingers. E-A-T-M-O-R. I took them to the farmer's market, gave them to him. I got $15 a piece, total of $45 for 3 t-shirts. I thought that'd be the end of the story. Well, the very next week at the farmer's market, I had a handful of people approach me and say, "Bo, Paul is wearing the coolest t-shirt I've ever seen in my life, and you have to make me." So I go to Paul. I said, "Paul, people want to buy this." He says, "Well, okay, of course." I said, "It's your idea." He says, "Bo, it's your design. Print and sell as many as people would like. And at the end of this year, if you sell a bunch, well, give me and my family a free one, would you?" Well, let's just say 11 years later, Paul and his family's closets must look like a sales rack at Eat More Kale shirts, because I had given them a buttload of t-shirts over 11 years. So thank you to Paul and his family. So about that same time, a young man with special needs named Seamus wound up moving in with me. I wound up marrying Melissa, and suddenly we were foster parents working out of the house. Well, that's certainly a blessing, but it does mean we had lots of time. And I found that going to markets, making t-shirts, going to the art store, going to the post office, gave Seamus and I something very real and very tangible to work for every single day. Well, at about that time, I had the internet was developing and online commerce was starting to take off. Well, I had a friend approach me. He says, "You need a website." I said, "Oh, geez, man, I don't know a URL from a hole in the ground, you know? That sounds like work." He says, "No, man, all you have to do is answer your email and you'll be receiving orders, essentially." I said, "Well, all right, how much is this going to cost?" He says, $20 and I'll build you a website. So he built me a $20 website called eatmorekale.com. And as it turns out, it was pretty handy and pretty easy. Overnight, I had by accident become an online entrepreneur, if you will. All I had to do was open my emails to receive orders from Boston to Austin to Berkeley. Well, that's fun stuff. So now we were doing markets, now we were doing some online business. Well, at this point I decided I need a business card. Excuse me, I need a drink. So I go to a local printer and was going to order my standard business card. So I looked down on his desk and there's a round bumper sticker. And I thought, you know what? I want my business card to be sticky. I want it to stick to things. So instead of a business card, I decided to get stickers. Round green stickers that simply say, "Eat More Kale" on it. Well, it's kind of fun to have a business card that people want. The first year I gave away 500. Now 11 years later, I give away over 100,000 free stickers per year. That's fun stuff. It's good for business. It's fun. So as business develops, as I start to spread the word, Seamus and I start putting more and more time into this. We started traveling to up to 9 music and art festivals per summer, traveling thousands of miles, saying goodbye to Melissa, and by this time I had 2 kids, saying goodbye for weekends at a time to go set up a booth in the middle of the field, go up to our knees in mud, and up to my eyebrows in dust, and sleeping in the back of a rent-a-van, or even in the floor of my booth, a term called bulldogging my booth. Well, and relying on porta potties in the summer for days and weeks at a time. So my point is, this was not glamorous. Nobody was getting rich, but it was fun. And there was some magic to it. There seemed to be, people were starting to call it a movement at this point. I would have people come into my booth and they'd laugh, and they'd point, they'd say, "That shirt is the greatest shirt ever. I love kale." Well, the next person would come in and say, "That shirt is the greatest shirt ever. I hate kale." Well, it seemed to be a win-win. It somehow or another, the shirt spoke to lots of people. I don't know why. I can't explain it to you fully. I'm just telling you, you got to trust me. A lot of people respond to this shirt. They come to my booth. They say, "Oh, I just have to tell you my Aunt Lulu's kale recipes." I said, "Okay, tell me your Aunt Lulu's kale recipes." Seamus and I sure aren't going anywhere. We're here another 4 or 5 days. Well, so years passed, summers passed, and I became known as the Eat More Kale guy around town. Well, at about this point, my web guy comes to me and says, social media, you need to be on Facebook. You need to start tweeting. Well, I have to say, that sounded like hell to me. Every single time he'd ask me, I'd say, hell no. That's not for me. That sounds hard. But he says, I'm telling you that this is going to work for you. So one day I received an email. Well, it's from my web guy. He says, you're now a member of Facebook. Here's your username. Here's your password. Next week, there's a meeting. He was telling me about a meeting that I should attend for small businesses and social media, and how to use social media effectively for marketing. So it was in a local lounge, if you will, kind of a highfalutin place. I had to attend. I had to put a shirt on with buttons and a collar, and I showed up and I sat in the front row and I listened. Well, as it turns out, the gist of the meeting was, we don't know what the hell works on social media yet. You guys go home, find out, and when you find out, come back and let us know. So thanks a lot, specialist. So I go home, I sit down in front of Facebook, having not been on Facebook at all, and I look at the screen and I think, what the heck do people want? What are they going to want from me? And I thought, well, I guess they'll want something free. I'll give away a free t-shirt. So I did a contest. I said, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. First person to get the number correct wins a free t-shirt. Well, it wasn't rocket science, you see, but as it turns out, people like free stuff. Free stuff is good for a small business. I send a free shirt to Peoria, Illinois, and lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I'm getting orders from Peoria, Illinois. So I do have to admit one little bit of influence now, and I know love them or hate them, but I have to give Howard Stern some credit. I was listening to Howard Stern radio at this point, and the dude's honest. The dude talks about his warts and all. He talks about his farts and all. You might know the story. Well, I thought, you know what? I'm not the king of vegans. I'm not the most politically correct guy ever. You know, I've got some bad jokes to tell. Here's a forum. I'm going to tell some of these jokes. Well, my wife would approach me and say things like, honey, so-and-so approached me on the playground today and said on Facebook last night you were complaining about a heat rash and asking for advice. Baby powder or cornstarch? She'd say, honey, really? Really? Isn't that too much information? I said, well, darling, if it's good enough for Howard, it's good enough for me. It's all I know, forgive me. So, a little bit of free stuff, a little bit of fun stuff. Social media turned out to be pretty good for a small business in Vermont. The more time I put into social media, the less time I had to spend on the road. It turned out to be pretty good for me. So I will reluctantly admit that my web guy was onto something. So years have passed. We're up to about 2008 by this point. Well, part of the side effect of having a successful business with such a simple and an easily replicated design was I started dealing with copycat artists. I started dealing with many people per year, t-shirt artists, small-time businesses that would design shirts or print shirts that looked just like mine. They would design websites to look just like mine and word them very much like me. And were trying to sell shirts that said, Eat More Kale. Well, that's awfully confusing to the customer base that I had worked so hard and traveled so far to develop. So I got a local lawyer, and I said, I need a trademark. He said, yes, you do. Just as Life is Good t-shirts has trademarked their simple three-word design, I needed that protection. I need that protection if I'm going to sell my business and if I'm ever going to license my business. So a local lawyer in Montpelier applied for me for a federal trademark, my design on t-shirts. I thought it would be a done deal. Well, a month later, he approaches me and says, I hate to say it, but your trademark has been blocked. And a fast food company that sells 600 sandwiches per minute wants you to cease and desist. They don't want you making another shirt, and they want your website shut down. He says, have you heard of Chick-fil-A? Well, I had heard of Chick-fil-A, and I have to tell you the backstory, and I'm going to make it real quick. In 2005, Chick-fil-A had gotten wind of me, probably through the stickers or the shirts. And in 2005, it sent me a letter that said, send your t-shirts and inventory to Atlanta to be destroyed. Shut your website down and don't make another t-shirt. Well, that was in 2005. I got a lawyer through the Vermont Arts Council, and we had them back down. We wrote a series of letters that essentially said, you're barking up the wrong tree. Don't mess with this guy. That's silly. Well, they silently capitulated. That is, they didn't respond. They quit responding to us. I took their silence as a green light to grow. So now, in 2011, when Dan says, have you heard of these guys? Well, I had. 2 times in 5 years they tried to shut me down. So he says, well, we're going to fight this. We're going to fight this at the federal level, and I'll do it for you for free. Well, how lucky am I to get a lawyer to agree to do that for me? I'm blessed, and I thank Dan. But I went to Dan and I said, you know what? Let's let some people know about this. Let's shine a light on this. Let's use social media and Facebook and everything we've been using for a couple of years. He says, no. That's not how lawyers do it. That's not how we do it. I said, you know what? I don't care how lawyers do it anymore. I have to go to Facebook. I have to tell some friends about this. So, let me see how short I can make this part. I went to social media back in November. Maybe some of you guys caught wind of this. And I said, Chick-fil-A wants me to shut down because they say I'm confusing their customers. Long story short, the world responded and said, no, you're not confusing them. This is BS. Chick-fil-A customers contacted me. My own customers contacted me. Strangers from around the world contacted me. The governor of Vermont, Peter Shumlin, set up a press conference where I stood shoulder to shoulder with him, and he looked at the camera and said, Chick-fil-A, did you get off this guy's back? We're not going to stand for this. Ben & Jerry's called me on a Friday and said, we want to talk to you. We've got an hour's worth of advice for you. So I spent a Friday afternoon on the phone listening to my gurus, my heroes, Ben & Jerry. And they essentially said, keep doing what you're doing and trust your gut. A couple of weeks after that, a local filmmaker named Jim Lance approaches me, and Jim says, oh, this is a really good film, but this is a really good story. We need to make a film out of this. Well, I agreed with them. It's a good story, or it's a story that I want told if they do, in fact, shut me down. But that's not the story we really want to make. The story we want to make is me standing up to them and them backing down because this case is ridiculous. I stand here, probably part of a perfect storm. This wouldn't have happened some years ago. The economy, the Occupy movement, corporations running rampant over the American dream and over free enterprise. I stand here before you, a t-shirt artist, a foster parent, a husband, a father to 2 kids, and now an accidental activist.
Out of the blue, I received a legal letter from Atlanta, Georgia. It knocked the wind out of me. I felt like I had been punched. I had to reread the letter again and again. I'd never seen a letter like that before.
Time now for the ridiculous, and tonight we're adding a David and Goliath story we like to call Chick-fil-A versus the T-shirt guy.
I'm a microbiz in Vermont making a handful of hand-printed shirts versus a multi-billion-dollar corporation that sells just under 500 sandwiches per minute.
The company is threatening to shut the guy down because it says that Eat More Kale is too close to its Eat More Chicken slogan.
They feel like they own the words eat and more. And the thing is more isn't even spelled correctly.
The Chick-fil-A managers wouldn't go on tape, but in the statement they said they'll continue to protect their trademark until the artist stops printing his kale t-shirts and turns over his website.
To be told by some billionaires in the deep south that it has to stop? Are you kidding me? They've done it to others. They gladly sent me a list of 30 others that they shut down.
The bully at the schoolyard, basically he tells you what to do, and you're going to do it, or you're going to get your nose in the dirt.
Please, Chick, Eric, don't do any more.
Are you going to be on my side while I let you up?
Sure, Chick, sure. I'm on your side. You're hurting a lot of businesses, and this is a big deal for a lot of people.
Is that true? Are you gonna sell that to us? And you got a guy making t-shirts in Vermont. Who the hell do they think they are?
That's not what this country was based on.
I'm inside a Chick-fil-A. I didn't buy any food, but I did get an iced tea. That stands up and wins and says, I'm not taking your bullshit. I'm not going to back down just because you say I should.